Welcome back, deep divers. Ready for another plunge into the world of compelling narratives?
Always up for a good deep dive, especially when it involves creatures of the night, ancient magic, and one girl's extraordinary journey.
And that's exactly where we're headed. This week, we're strapping on our metaphorical scuba gear and diving headfirst into Tracy Wolfe's Furia. But we're not just skimming the surface this time.
Oh no, we're going deep, exploring those pivotal chapters 95 to 122 to uncover the mystery surrounding Grace Foster and her transformation.
Because, let's face it, going from seemingly ordinary girl to powerful gargoyle, that's not your average coming-of-age story.
Not even close. We're talking amnesia, blood, and a whole lot of questions, like what happened to Grace during those missing 4 months?
Right. She wakes up covered in blood, no memory of how she got there, and a whole new world of gargoyle abilities to contend with. It's like waking up from a blackout, only to discover you've somehow developed a taste for marble statues and moonlight.
And a healthy fear of heights, one would imagine. But seriously, that kind of memory gap, it hints at something huge, a traumatic experience tied to her transformation.
Exactly. It's not just forgetting where you left your keys. It's like a whole chunk of her life has been hit with a giant cosmic eraser.
Which begs the question, what could be so overwhelming that her mind would just shut down? What are those missing memories trying to protect her from?
It's like the mind's defense mechanism,
Right.
right? A way of shielding itself from something it can't quite process yet.
Precisely. And uncovering those lost memories, those missing pieces of the puzzle, might be the key to understanding not just what happened to Grace, but how she became this powerful being.
And let's be real, being a gargoyle isn't all gothic castles and midnight flights. She's suddenly thrust into a world of magic, danger, and a whole new set of rules.
And a steep learning curve, I imagine. It's not every day you discover you're immune to magic or that you can channel energy like a living conduit.
Talk about a crash course in the supernatural. But what's really interesting is how Grace initially resists this new reality.
Well, wouldn't you? Imagine waking up one morning and realizing you could sprout wings, turn to stone, and shrug off spells like they were nothing. Talk about an identity crisis.
It'd be a shock, to say the least. But instead of embracing it, Grace is like, nope, not dealing with this, at least at first.
Which is understandable given the circumstances. She goes from struggling to control her transformations, almost like she's trying to stuff a genie back into a bottle,
Too old.
to showing these incredible flashes of power. It's like watching a butterfly emerge from its cocoon, except this butterfly has claws and a serious glare.
And don't forget, she's not just dealing with the physical changes. There's this whole new world of senses, abilities, and instincts she's trying to navigate.
It is like learning to walk and talk all over again, but with the added pressure of, maybe accidentally turning to stone in public.
Or realizing you left your stone-proof pants at the dry cleaners.
Yeah.
But, jokes aside, it's a testament to human adaptability. Even when faced with the seemingly impossible, we find ways to adapt, to learn, and to eventually maybe even excel. And in Grace's case, she has a little help along the way. Well, maybe not little. Let's talk about Hudson.
Ah, yes. Hudson, the resident gargoyle expert trapped inside her head. Talk about awkward roommate situation.
It's like having a grumpy mentor who never leaves you alone, not even for a second.
But a mentor nonetheless. He becomes her guide, her sounding board, offering his wisdom, experience, and occasional sarcastic commentary, all while trapped in the labyrinth of her mind.
It's like having a walking, talking encyclopedia of gargoyle lore stuck on repeat inside your head.
Exactly. He's a constant reminder of the stakes involved, the challenges she faces, and the legacy she's now a part of. He's also a constant source of witty banter, which, let's be honest, any good story needs a little humor, even when you're dealing with ancient prophecies and bloodthirsty enemies.
It's true, Hudson's snark is almost its own character at this point. But speaking of prophecies and enemies, things are about to get real for Grace with the Ludaris tournament on the horizon.
Ah, yes, the Ludaris. A tournament where the fate of the supernatural world hangs in the balance, and our amnesiac gargoyle protagonist is thrown into the mix.
Talk about a high-stakes debut, but it's not just about winning a shiny trophy, is it?
Oh no, it's a whirlwind of alliances, betrayals, and power plays. Everyone has their own agenda, their own stake in who wins and who loses.
And Grace, with her newfound abilities and mysterious past, becomes a wild card. She's a disruptor in a world that clings to tradition, and that makes her a target.
Absolutely, and let's not forget, she's still piecing together her own memories, her own identity, while navigating this treacherous landscape. It's a lot to handle, even for someone with gargoyle strength and a snarky gargoyle advisor in their head.
Speaking of, I'm curious to hear your take on Cyrus. He's the king, the supposed ruler of this world, but he's also manipulative, power-hungry, and not afraid to play dirty.
Cyrus is a fascinating character study. He embodies that struggle between maintaining order and succumbing to the allure of control. He believes he's doing what's necessary to protect his people, even if it means making morally ambiguous choices.
But that line between protection and control can get blurry, especially when you're dealing with ancient magic and beings as powerful as gargoyles.
And that's where the conflict really comes to a head. Grace's immunity to magic, something that initially seemed like a superpower, turns out to be a threat to the very order Cyrus is trying to maintain.
It disrupts the balance of power, making her both an asset and a liability. And let's be real, Cyrus doesn't like anything or anyone he can't control.
Which is why the attack on Grace during the tournament is such a turning point in the story. It's not just a physical assault, it's a calculated power move, a way for Cyrus to reassert his dominance.
It's a clear message: don't underestimate me. This world operates by my rules. But what he fails to realize is that sometimes the most powerful lessons are learned through adversity.
It's a classic hero's journey trope. Trauma can break you, or it can ignite a fire within you. And for Grace, that attack becomes a catalyst. It pushes her to confront her fears, to hone her abilities, and to finally embrace her destiny.
She realizes she's not just fighting for herself anymore, she's fighting for the freedom of others. For a world where power isn't wielded through fear and manipulation, but through compassion and understanding.
It's a beautiful evolution of her character. But it's not without its challenges. Let's talk about the emotional fallout from that attack, especially the guilt and grief she carries.
The loss of Xavier is a gut punch, not just for Grace, but for us as readers, too. It highlights the very real consequences of this world, the sacrifices demanded of those who dare to challenge the status quo.
And it adds another layer of complexity to her relationship with Jackson. He's fiercely protective of her, willing to put his own life on the line for her safety, but he also understands that she needs to forge her own path.
It's that classic struggle between wanting to shield someone you love from pain and knowing that true growth often comes from facing those challenges head on.
And that's what makes their bond so compelling. It's a dance between support and independence, love and sacrifice. They're there for each other through thick and thin, but they also recognize that they each have their own battles to fight.
And as Grace's journey continues, she finds herself drawn to the Dragon Cemetery, a place steeped in ancient power and guarded by skeletal dragons. Because of course it is.
Leave it to Tracy Wolff to up the ante. But the cemetery isn't just a spooky setting, it's a symbol of the legacy Grace is now a part of, the ancient power that flows through her veins.
And it's in this eerie, atmospheric place that Grace has a realization. To unlock Hudson's freedom, she needs to find the three things that bind him to this world. And surprise, surprise, they're not exactly trinkets you can pick up at your local souvenir shop.
Nope. We're talking about artifacts of immense power, each guarded by trials and tribulations, designed to test Grace's courage, her resolve, and her understanding of what it truly means to be a gargoyle.
It's like a supernatural scavenger hunt, only with higher stakes and scarier guardians.
Exactly. And it's here, in the heart of the Dragon Cemetery, surrounded by the bones of legends, that Grace begins to understand the true weight of her inheritance, the responsibility that comes with wielding the power of the gargoyles. And it's a legacy intertwined with sacrifice, duty, and a deep connection to the balance of the world.
It's like she's uncovering layers of history, both personal and ancient, with each step she takes.
Exactly. She's not just on a quest for artifacts, she's on a journey of self-discovery, unraveling the mysteries of her past while confronting the challenges of her present.
And let's not forget the Ludaris Championship looming in the background because, why not add a life or death tournament to an already impossible quest?
It's almost as if someone handed Grace a to-do list that says, save the world, find ancient artifacts, win a tournament against supernatural beings, and, oh yeah, try to remember who you are.
Talk about pressure. But I guess that's the life of a gargoyle, especially one thrust into extraordinary circumstances.
It's a crash course in leadership, responsibility, and the true meaning of power.
And speaking of power, let's talk about that final showdown with Cyrus, because things get pretty intense.
Intense is an understatement. It's a whirlwind of magic, betrayal, and sacrifice. Remember how we talked about Grace's immunity to magic being both a blessing and a curse?
Yeah, how could I forget? It's like having a superpower that also paints a giant target on your back.
Well, during that final confrontation, her immunity becomes the key to breaking Cyrus's control. It disrupts his magic, throws him off balance, and ultimately gives Grace the upper hand.
Talk about turning a weakness into a strength. But even with her powers, it's not an easy victory. She's exhausted, wounded, and facing an enemy who's been wielding magic for centuries.
And that's where Hudson's sacrifice comes in. It's a moment that still gives me chills every time I read it. He chooses to lend her his strength, knowing it could mean his own destruction.
It's a testament to the bond they've forged, the respect and, dare I say, affection that's grown between them despite their differences.
Absolutely. It's a beautiful, heartbreaking moment that shows just how far they've both come. And it gives Grace the boost she needs to defeat Cyrus, to shatter his hold on this world, and to usher in a new era.
It's a victory hard won, but a victory nonetheless. But, as with all victories, it comes at a price.
The price of freedom, the weight of loss, the understanding that sometimes to save something you love, you have to let it go.
And in Grace's case, letting go means severing the connection with Hudson, releasing him from the confines of her mind, even though it breaks her heart.
It's a bittersweet ending, but one that speaks to the complexities of life, the choices we make, and the sacrifices we endure for the greater good.
In the end, we see Grace standing on the precipice of a new chapter. She's no longer just a girl with amnesia. She's a powerful gargoyle, a leader, a protector, and perhaps most importantly, a survivor.
She's embraced her destiny, confronted her fears, and emerged from the fire stronger, wiser, and more compassionate.
And as we leave Grace to navigate this new world, this new chapter in her extraordinary life, we invite you, our deep divers, to ponder this. What hidden depth reside within you? What challenges are you willing to confront? And what sacrifices will you make to embrace your own potential, your own journey toward becoming the best version of yourself? Until next time, keep diving deep.